Good evening. This is week 3 of Social Work 505, and let's go over the requirements for this week and talk a little bit specifically about case management, care management, as it is called in the aging system, which is where I completed most of my practice experience. So, week 3 is on case management, evidence-based practice, and trauma and crisis intervention. So, let's go to our introduction. And the introduction for this week, widen this out. This week's unit covers several topics, case management as well as trauma and crisis. The discussion will be around the skills needed to develop a supportive relationship and the role of the case manager, as well as how to help clients make decisions and prioritize in the case management process. In addition, we will discuss working with clients in crisis and how to support them from a clinical as well as case management perspective in order to empower them to make good decisions. And finally, we will address trauma and its impact on the client system, as well as vicarious trauma and its impact on the worker. So first, you will see this short introductory video. The learning objectives for this week are to demonstrate an understanding of the impact of trauma on clients and professionals, and to demonstrate an understanding of ways to work with clients in crisis. There are several learning resources for this week. They are all outside readings. So you're going to be looking at social workers as crisis counselors, case management and community corrections, current status and future directions, depicting current case management models, and do some interventions work better than others, a review of comparative social work experiments. The next, is to look at this video on understanding PTSD's effect on brain, body, and emotions. You will need to refer to this video for one of your discussion posts. So let's go to doing an overview of the assignments for this week, and then I'll talk a little bit more about care management, case management. So, after reviewing the video that I just spoke about, you're going to reflect on the impact of trauma and how, as a social worker, it is important to have a good plan for self-care. This is set up differently from other course discussions because you won't see what other students say until you have done your initial post. And then you're going to follow up with at least one classmate, preferably one that does not have a response. And you're going to tell them what you've learned from their post and what you could add to their learning, and offer suggestions for self-care that you have tried or have considered trying. So as always, your initial post is due Thursday and your follow-up is between Friday and Sunday at 11:59. The next discussion post is asking you to do the following. This form will help you begin preparing and thinking about your initial biopsychosocial assessment, which is due week 4. In this initial post, you're going to answer the following. What are attending skills? And if you were using attending skills with a client, how would we be able to tell that you're doing that? What does it mean to you to develop a collaborative relationship to support change? And if you were developing this kind of relationship, how would you be able to tell that you're doing so? What does it mean to join empathetically? Think about a population you've worked with or one you like to work with, and how you would be able to develop empathy for this population and for the population, or how Were you able to develop empathy, or how would you develop empathy? And what would you struggle with in developing empathy? And then what model approach that we've covered so far in this course, for example, collaborative or interactional model, will you use to guide your interview and relationship development? And again, you're going to respond to at least one of your classmates to tell them what you've learned from their post and what you might be able to add to their post. The third requirement is a paper, and please review, there's a video on preparing papers through APA, and here is that video. So formatting a paper in APA, please take a look at this. So you're going to look at the requirements for this paper in terms of the major projects and assignments. So let's see if we can get to this fairly quickly. So here's our major projects and assignments for week 3. So let's find that. So for some reason it's jumped. Here is the paper for week 3. So this is practice and evaluation interview paper due Sunday, week 3. So the instructions are as follows. You are going to interview 2 MSW holding social workers. And if possible, it would be good if you could get someone who's dealing with individuals, families, groups, and communities, and obtain their views about the following: the theories, models, and practice they use, what makes their work interesting and stimulating, constraints that they encounter, their perceptions of the effectiveness of their work and how they measure that effectiveness, the professional social work values they demonstrate, and ways that they engage in lifelong learning. This is a 4 to 5 page paper, which does not include the title and reference pages, so please make note of that. You're going to summarize the responses. You're going to highlight information that you found particularly interesting or surprising. Identify at least one practice recommendation that you would give to each one. Identify other questions that you would have found useful, and then integrate, as always, readings around practice effectiveness and theoretical models. But every paper you do should be incorporating readings from the class. Please make note of the rubric that is below in terms of this first paper, and make sure that you always have a title page and a reference page. So let us talk about care case management. This is a PowerPoint that I put together a while ago. So let's begin looking at this particular PowerPoint. So what is care case management? It's an intervention on behalf of clients or consumers in the aging system. We call them consumers, to help them overcome problems which interfere with the delivery of services. These problems identified include fragmentation, lack of continuity, difficulty accessing services, biased or narrow understanding of what the client needs, and lack of information on the part of families, clients, consumers, in addition to limited resources. So it's an intervention to help consumers, clients overcome problems. NASW has a particular definition of care case management, and so it's a mechanism for ensuring a comprehensive program that would meet an individual's need for care by coordinating and linking components of a service delivery system. It's also a function designed to arrange for and to sequence needed services of different sorts by various providers on behalf of a client or client family or client system. Care case management involves the engagement of a client in a system of services. To continue that definition, it's an ongoing process that consists of the assessments of wants and needs, planning, locating, securing supports and services, monitoring and follow along or follow up. The individual or family is the defining force of the service coordination process as always. And so it's an approach to service delivery that attempts to ensure that clients with very complex, multiple problems and disabilities receive all the services they need in a timely and appropriate fashion. It's a boundary spanning approach in that instead of providing a specific direct service, it utilizes care case managers to link the clients to the vast maze of service providers. One of the things I like to emphasize about care case management is that it is both a clinical and a management process. Sometimes we take the clinical piece out of care management, but anytime you're providing direct practice, you're developing a relationship with a client, and you are interacting with a client or client system, you are engaged in a clinical process. So the quality of the service delivered to the consumer is dependent upon the development of a continuous, productive, helping relationship between the consumer or client and the worker. Some of the goals are as follows: to facilitate access to complete service systems ranging from, in the case of the aging system, home care to institutional care, or in other systems, the range of services that are provided, to facilitate choice for consumers, to ensure coordinated delivery of appropriate services, to ensure periodic review of the appropriateness of the plans that we develop, to facilitate always the independence of our clients, and to document gaps in service and advocate to fill those gaps. What does a good care case manager need? Good clinical skills, basic understanding of casework, good communication and interviewing skills, the use of empathy versus sympathy, the value of individual uniqueness, the ability to use good judgment, cultural sensitivity, good organization and time management, being detail-oriented, and ability to fairly allocate resources. So the success of the helping relationship is dependent upon the quality of the consumer-worker relationship, the warmth, the acceptance, the empathy, the caring concern, and being genuine. Empathy is walking in the shoes of the other person, being aware and responsive, understanding others, and I mentioned this before, the ability to do active listening. Narrative interviewing is a style of assessment and getting information and also building relationships. It's non-threatening. It starts where the client is. It's less formal, allows individuals to construct their own reality, and gives people a sense of control because they can find meaning in the stories. Case managers often have this role duality that they have to come to grips with, and that is that they are representative of the client and consumer, but also an agency. They are providing, developing a relationship with clients versus being the actual provider of service, and those clinical and managerial functions. What can get in the way? So from the consumer perspective, they feel vulnerable, they're scared, their current circumstances, what has gone on in their life, loss after loss after loss, trying to get some control back, personality issues, and cross-cultural misunderstanding. From the worker perspective, what can get in the way? If we let our emotions get out of control, which was talked about in the introductory video, if we get on the offensive, if we see the downside of working with clients, here I said the downside of aging, but it's also the downside of working with any client. If we let ourselves get into the mode of showing sympathy and pity for someone versus empathy, we start to moralize and sermonize and give advice. We're judgmental. We let the reporting requirements, the requirements of our job, overshadow what the consumers need, and that we do boundary crossing, which was talked a lot in week 1 in terms of some of those ethical dilemmas. So what can cause burnout? What can cause us to experience trauma working with our clients over and over? What can cause us to burn out? So we don't have good balance in our lives. We're not having a good awareness of ourselves. We get involved in values, ethical conflicts. We feel stuck and we don't have our own social supports. How do we avoid it? We know ourselves. We analyze our strengths and capitalize on them. We know the areas where we need additional training, we go get it, and we find a support network and we use it. And in this week, you'll talk more about ways that workers can get help in terms of avoiding burnout and avoiding vicarious trauma. And this is a reference from NASW. So I look forward to reading your discussion posts this week and also your papers. So if you have any questions, please email me as quickly as possible and I will try to respond to you as quick as I can. Have a wonderful week.